When it comes to the most gripping transformation process in a horror film, Bite, 2015, undoubtedly tops the list. Everyone who has watched it exclaims it's terribly disgusting, yet they can't help but continue watching. The story starts with two girls frolicking in the wild, when suddenly, Casey feels a severe pain in her leg, as if bitten by something. They both assumed it was just a regular insect and did not pay much mind. However, upon returning home, Casey found her body behaving oddly. She was covered in tiny red spots and her hearing became exceptionally sensitive, so much so that she could hear sounds from miles away. At first, Casey thought it was just hallucinations caused by overwork, but the next day, the bitten areas started to fester. She reluctantly squeezed it, and a disgusting thick liquid oozed out. What's worse, she frequently felt nauseous and lost her appetite. She took a small bite of a hamburger, and a strong feeling of nausea immediately welled up. Even watching her boyfriend eat made her want to vomit. But what she vomited was a clear mucus. Strangely, the dog next door, which she used to get along with and sometimes even took for walks, seemed to be afraid of her. At this point, Casey realized that the insect that bit her was no ordinary insect, and that her body was undergoing some kind of change. She told her best friend, Denise, about it, and Denise thought she might be pregnant. Only Casey knew that this was impossible because she had not been intimate with her boyfriend for a while. But after listening to Denise, Casey took a pregnancy test at home and was shocked to find that she was indeed pregnant. Casey immediately panicked and called her doctor friend to discuss her condition. The doctor had never seen such symptoms and suggested she go to the hospital for a checkup. But Casey didn't follow the doctor's advice. Instead, she went to the pharmacy and bought some anti-infective drugs. However, when she applied the medicine to the wound, she felt nauseous again. This time, not only did she vomit mucus, but also some transparent round objects, much like the tapioca pearls in bubble tea. This scared Casey even more. She hurriedly called the hospital to arrange a checkup, but just after hanging up, she found the outside light extremely dazzling. Casey felt uncomfortable, so she immediately closed the curtains and unknowingly fell asleep. When she woke up, it was already nighttime. She heard some noise outside, carefully went out, and the lights in the living room suddenly turned on. It turned out that her boyfriend and friends were there to celebrate her birthday. In the next second, Casey suddenly collapsed and countless insect eggs gushed out of her body. She was frightened and at a loss for what to do, and the others were just as shocked. But soon they began to stomp on the insect eggs on the ground. Casey tried to stop them, as these were her children, but the more she tried to stop them, the more excited they became. Suddenly, Casey woke up in the bathtub. It turned out that it was all just a nightmare, but it felt so real. At this point, her body was covered in mucus and her entire room was filled with the slippery substance, giving her a bad premonition. She wobbled from the bathroom to the bedroom, pulled back the blanket and sure enough, it was full of insect eggs. She looked in the mirror and found that her face had started to change as well. The sight made Casey cry. Her once beautiful face had turned into this. At this moment, there was a knock at the door. Peeking through the peephole, it was her sarcastic landlord. Casey wanted to send her away, but the landlord pushed the door open and saw the state of the room. She flew into a rage and even insulted Casey. The physical transformation and the landlord's insults made Casey lose control of her emotions. In the ensuing fight, a highly corrosive mucus sprayed from her mouth, disfiguring the landlord's face and causing her to fall dead on the spot. Casey was terrified of what was happening to her. After calming down, she picked up an insect egg and discovered a mosquito-like creature inside. She dragged the landlord's corpse into the bathroom and put it in the bathtub. Looking at herself in the mirror again, Casey let out a helpless roar. Meanwhile, her boyfriend Lawrence couldn't reach Casey, so he had to go to her place. No matter how much he knocked, there was no response from inside. Not wanting her boyfriend to see her current appearance, she made up an excuse to send him away. In the days that followed, Casey isolated herself, staying in her room every day without contact with anyone. Her best friend Denise, fearing that something had happened, went to her residence. After knocking and getting no response, she had to use her key card to open the door. To her horror, the room was filled with disgusting slime and numerous insect eggs, and there was a foul smell permeating the room. Seeing Casey hidden in the corner, Denise immediately asked what had happened. Faced with her friend's concern, Casey broke down in tears. However, her appearance terrified Denise, causing her to back away in fright. Casey pleaded with Denise not to leave her, but her actions only made Denise more fearful, leading her to take refuge in the bathroom. About to call the police, she turned around and saw the landlord's corpse. Fearing exposure, Casey forced the door open. She only wanted to stop her friend from calling the police, not to harm her. But the deadly venom that secreted from her hands unintentionally took her friend's life. Another best friend of hers, Jane, had been eyeing Casey's boyfriend. Learning that the couple had been having problems recently, Jane started to sow discord between them as Lawrence was preparing to find Casey. The two did something in the car that betrayed Casey's trust. Unbeknownst to them, Casey had heard everything from upstairs. Jane even had the audacity to go upstairs after the deed to share the good news with Casey. As soon as she entered the room, she almost threw up her lunch. Although scared, she braved on to look for Casey, only to find Denise's body in the bedroom. Before she could escape, she was ambushed by Casey, who had suddenly appeared behind her. When Jane woke up, she was tied to a chair. Casey glared at her former best friend, telling her she knew about their affair and that she intended to teach her a lesson. Downstairs, Lawrence, who was waiting, went upstairs to check when he realized that Jane had not come down. As soon as he got to the door, he heard Jane scream. Panicked, he pushed the door open, and the sight before him shocked him. He was more worried about Jane's safety and tried to untie her, but Casey suddenly appeared behind him. The sight of his girlfriend scared Lawrence. Casey asked him if he would still be with her. Lawrence was so scared he couldn't answer. Seeing the fear in her boyfriend's eyes made Casey very angry. She used her sharp claws to kill Jane. Lawrence, seeing this, wanted to flee but was quickly caught by Casey. He struggled to free himself, managed to pin Casey down, but unexpectedly was stabbed in the waist by her tail. Seeing Casey launching another attack, Lawrence picked up a broken table leg and in a moment of desperation, killed her as she lunged at him, and then crushed her skull under his foot. Severely injured, Lawrence stumbled out of the room, calling 911 as he was losing consciousness. By the time the police arrived, they found Lawrence's body riddled with eggs. The next second, numerous giant mosquitoes burst from within him, attacking the police officers. At the end of the film, two girls are out for a run when one of them is suddenly bitten by something. She instinctively swats at it, only to find an enormous mosquito, a sign that an even more terrifying disaster is about to unfold.
Are you okay?
Yeah, just a little bit.